The other day, this Mexican lady, she was YT presenting. She came on the live and she was saying, no hay racismo aquí en México. Nosotros aquí no discriminamos. It got to a point where she started saying, but you guys are always crying. You guys are victimizing yourself all the time. We talk about racism because it's something that actually affects us every single day. White people don't have the need to speak about racism because they don't feel it. They don't go through it.
Before we head over to the Mexican side, we're gonna first touch on something you said because you're Cuban. She said to you as a white Mexican herself, she said, "Hey, I'm Mexican and Cubans have never discriminated against me. Since you're Cuban, why haven't Cubans discriminated against this white Mexican?"
First of all, because she's white teen.
Mhm.
That's the first thing. And that's one point I brought to her during the live stream. I told her that if they see somebody like you, they will tell you straight up to your face que tú eres un tiraflecha, thinking that's something right to say.
So tira flecha is somebody with the crossbow. So the way
Yeah,
that, the
crossbow.
way that them white Cubans, what they call people that look like me, is somebody that shoots a crossbow. It's very common to be called by white Latinos actually. Even white Mexicans they call us tira flechas or they call us a pata rajada too. Pata rajada is somebody who's got cuts under their foot. The reason why is because indigenous people are not wearing shoes and running, bare feet. Now let's head over to the Mexican side of this issue. First of all, it's very common for white Mexicans to claim that there is no racism in Mexico. As a matter of fact, it's very rare when you actually find a white Mexican that will admit that there is racism. Very rare. It's so rare to find one of those. Generally speaking, white Mexicans will die on that hill of claiming that there is no racism in Mexico. But here's the thing, though: they're not lying. They're not lying that there is no racism in Mexico. For them, the thing about white people, man, not just in this country, the United States, but people need to understand the thing about white people in all of the Americas, South Africa, and everywhere where white people have colonized, Australia, Hawaii. White people, when they say there is no racism, they're not lying because it means there is no racism for them. And the reality, if we are honest with ourselves as non-white people, to white people, we don't matter. We are irrelevant. We are completely irrelevant. What we go through, it doesn't matter. When white people, whether here in the United States or white Latinos, when they say that there is no racism in Mexico, we have to understand what they mean. Especially in Mexico, if there's one thing to learn about Mexico, is that in Mexico, white Mexicans feel like they are the real Mexicans. Believe it or not, they're the real Mexicans. And people that look like me, indigenous people, we are not Mexican necessarily. We're Indios to them. They don't identify us as Mexican. They identify us as Indios, indigenous people. We are a different race, obviously. We are completely irrelevant. And it shows, like you said, Anthony, it shows because in Latin media and Mexican media, all you see is white people on telenovelas, on the newscast. All of the representation of what is Mexican is white tea. And then you see one or two of us that look like me in the backgrounds, mowing the lawns, being maids, being the help. And that we need to understand. That is a great representation of what we are to them. They are the representation. They are what matters in Mexico. And we are just the workers there. We have to understand that so we could understand what they mean when they say in Mexico there is no racism. Of course, coming from a white tea person. But now ask indigenous people if there's racism in Mexico. They're going to say, of course there is. Ask black people of Mexico if there is racism in Mexico. Absolutely there is. But then you ask a white tea person, they can't give you experiences or examples of racism because, like you said, they've never experienced it. They never will.
She went to the U.S. She started saying that there is a lot of racism against us Mexicans in the U.S. I mean, she's like, yeah, you can see like this administration, what the administration is doing against us Mexicans. And I'm like, take Canelo for example. You would think that Canelo will get stopped by ICE or by and the popo here, and they're gonna ask for his paper. He won't face any discriminations here in the states But if he opens his mouth, and you can, then he will face discrimination because of where he comes from, because
Mhm.
of the language that he speaks, but not because of the color of his skin. She didn't want to understand that. The only people, the only Mexicans are actually being persecuted here in the U.S. are the native people.
Mhm. Let me pause you right there, Anthony. Thank you for bringing that up. What white tea presenting Mexicans face is not racism. Because the white tea Mexicans, when they come here, and white tea Latinos, when they come here on site, because of what they look like, because they are racially identified as white, they'll never face racism. They'll never face discrimination because of what they look like. They have to open their mouth. They have to go out of their way to identify themselves as, sure, white tea racially, but something else. So when we really think about it, they never face racism. No, 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 no. Because before they open their mouth, before anything, they are identified as white tea. That is the race of these people of Latin America that are white tea presenting. That is their race. They're white tea. The moment they open their mouth, and like you said, people, white tea people hear an accent, they still see a white tea person. But now they discriminate because they speak another language and they assume they come from a different country. That's xenophobia now. Sure, sure,
Xenophobia, yeah. Mhm.
sure. They experience discrimination now because of they're potentially from a different country, but they don't face racism, and that's the problem because someone that looks like you, someone that looks like me, because of what we look like, we are discriminated against. They're never going to be discriminated against because of what they look like. They're only discriminated against because of maybe they speak Spanish, Portuguese, etc. That's xenophobia.
I don't know how to talk to whitey people about racism because I know they won't be able to understand it. I don't even want to do the effort of, going out of my way to explain to whitey people how this works and how we are affected collectively by all this racism and the caste system and everything that the white man created here, especially in Latin America.
You said that she said that when she came to talk with you, that she claimed that you see what her, right? We Mexicans face here in this country, we face racism because we're Mexican. It's ironic to me how white tea Latinos, in this case, white tea Mexicans, now they know what racism is because they're being discriminated against. Now they know what that's like. The irony of it all and the hypocrisy of it all, the way that they feel they're being treated when they come to this country is exactly the way that they treat people that look like you and I in Latin American countries. That's the hypocrisy and the irony of it all. Is that the way that they complain that they're treated here when they come to this country is the way that they treat us in Latin American country. That's the irony with the white Latinos.
She also said that black Mexicans, they don't face any type of discrimination in Mexico. She had the audacity to say that black people are in the condition that they are in Mexico is because of racism. It's because of a whole system that is set up against us.
Mm-hmm.
And she couldn't understand it.
And for white Latinos, what it looks like and what it feels like to them to experience losing their privilege is when they come to this country. That's when they realize, and that's when they start feeling what it feels like. Not to the full effect, of course, because they're still white tea, but because of the fact that they're from another country and because they speak a different language, because they have an accent when they speak English, now they face something. And that's when they finally, once in their life, they experience what it's like to lose some of that privilege. And you would think that this alone would help them understand what people from the countries that they come from experience because they're not white tea. But still, no, they don't care, and that's why it's important to note that for white tea Latinos, whether Mexicans, etc., what we go through is completely irrelevant because here, white tea Latinos, they have the opportunity to experience what it's like to be discriminated against. They finally get the opportunity when they come to this country, and you would think that would, oh shit, maybe that's what they're talking about over there in the country, in Mexico and Latin America. But that still doesn't do it for them. It's because we just don't matter to them. We're completely irrelevant. Our struggle is irrelevant. Unfortunately, that doesn't become enough for them to,